serves on the House Rules Committee. We appreciate you joining us on this holiday week. Wonderful to have you with us. So Democrats and Nancy Pelosi have said that they're waiting on these articles, that they're working to ensure that there's a fair trial in the Senate. But there have been a lot of other theories floated by Republicans, by folks from the other side of the aisle that think that Nancy Pelosi is stalling for all sorts of reasons. So we're going to get your thoughts on why these articles are being held.
Well, my first take is that they're holding the articles because they really had nothing in the first place. So they send them over to the Senate and it crashes and burns. The president is exonerated and they did not accomplish what they set out to accomplish, which was to politically harm the president at the beginning of a political year.
So you think they're stalling, in essence, to continue digging, that they're hoping they find something more?
Look, they had all the tools at their disposal on the House side. They met in secret, not just behind locked doors, but with armed guards outside the doors. They still haven't made all of the transcripts available to members of Congress. And according to House rules, any committee hearing is supposed to be, the transcript is supposed to be available to other House members, but they have not done so. And no one has asserted that these are classified briefings. They were just simply secret hearings because it behooved the Speaker to have secret hearings. That doesn't pass muster. That's not a constitutional part of the process.
Well, we have a brilliant producer, Chad Burgess, who works on Capitol Hill. You're most likely familiar with Chad. Brilliant behind the scenes as well as on camera and also in writing. And he wrote this as a reporter's notebook. Why is Pelosi holding the articles of impeachment? D.C. insiders have some theories. And he writes this: Pelosi has known how to get under Trump's skin. Consider how Trump talked about how he wandered around alone at the White House last Christmas during the government shutdown. The president said just the other day he wanted a speedy trial. By holding on to the articles, Pelosi could deny the president his most prominent wish and essentially rent space in Trump's head. The president thought this would all be done by mid-January, not now. So is Pelosi pulling kind of like a Jedi mind trick? This is all about making the president wait, lingering this out, just getting into his head. What do you think about that idea?
Maybe. Who knows what they're actually thinking, or if there are even any thought processes that are actually going on. But look, what are we talking about this morning? We're talking about the president. We're talking about President Trump. Anytime we're talking about President Trump, he's winning. So if they think they're playing a mind game or trying to get under Trump's skin, okay, great. But people are sick of this. The words I hear most often are mad, sad, and frustrated by the process that's taken so long in the House. And you know what? There are other things we could be doing that we are not doing, kind of underscored by the last-minute passage of that big trade agreement between the United States, Mexico, and Canada. I'm in Texas. Mexico is our #1 trading partner. The fact that that agreement was held up for almost a year because they didn't want to give the president a win on anything, and they wanted to occupy their time with impeachment, that, again, people are frustrated by this.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see when a trial actually begins, if it goes into January and February and into the 2020 election. Another thought is that the reason this is being held up is because it gives time for there to be some dissolution in the ranks, Republicans to break up a little bit as it gets closer to the impeachment trial. And that cues the Alaska Senator Lisa Murkowski. She's known as an independent thinking moderate. You know, she sometimes bucks the party line. She's done so on the Kavanaugh nomination, for instance, and as well as health care. But she has said that she's disturbed by Mitch McConnell's discussion of coordination with the White House. Now, that to me, I don't know how big of a chink in the armor that is for Republicans, but could it potentially affect the ultimate rules they use going forward in the Senate when this trial actually gets underway?
I honestly don't see how. The rules are going to be decided by the Senate, and correct, it is a 51 votes on the rule process as it comes over to the Senate. But realistically, we all know how this story ends. There are not 2/3 of the senators willing to convict and remove the president, and as a consequence, and in an election year, for crying out loud. So as a consequence, we all know how this ends. So to the extent that they're simply taking up space and taking up valuable time, I guess that must be a game plan, but it doesn't seem like a winning strategy to me.
You know, we have spent a lot of time talking about this, and you talked about how there are many other things that Americans would like to be talking about. How do you get the focus back on that with this looming out there? You know, we're waiting till January 7th now till everything gets back in order in Washington and everyone comes back. You know, how do you get the attention back on the things that you want to talk about?
Well, it does become hard. And look, it's going to be hard anyway because it's an election year and people tend to play less well together during an election year if they're from opposite parties. So that's already the backdrop or the backstop of this. But there are some things that can be done, that should be done. There's some changes to tax policy that really need to be made. There's an expiration date on the doubling of the exemption for the personal taxes that is looming just a couple of years down the road. People need to be able to make plans in their own personal finances, and all the time the House doesn't do that work, it just delays the inevitable. You know, a lot of people weren't paying attention right before the end of the year. There were two very big taxes that got repealed, two big Obamacare taxes that got repealed by a Democratic House of Representatives. How bizarre is that the device tax and the Cadillac tax and, in fact, the health insurance tax, all big parts of paying for the Affordable Care Act, were all repealed. I don't know if that crossed anyone's radar screen.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of the good and bad is getting buried under some of this other stuff. And as you mentioned, here comes 2020. It's been a fascinating 2019, so we'll see what happens next year. Congressman, thank you so much for joining us today. Appreciate it.